show you how to prepare and assemble my cap explosion boxes. As always, I am using CRICUT Design Space. However, if you are a Silhouette user, please feel free to follow along as the process is exactly the same for both. Just make sure that for CRICUT you're using the SVG file, and for Silhouette you'll need the DXF file. Although I have also included a Silhouette file as well, just to make things a little bit easier for you. Add the file to your canvas. Now, it's a very good size as is, so I don't recommend resizing it. However, should you want to make them smaller or larger, select the group, make sure the sizing padlock is locked, and then simply drag to make it smaller or larger. I'm going to go ahead and make them as is, and the first thing you want to do is ungroup your layers. Now, with this being an explosion box, there are quite a lot of score layers. So I've tried to make it as easy as possible by putting the score layers at the bottom of the layers panel. And what I like to do is just open up all of those groups just so I can easily go ahead and get to that score layer, so I can change it to score and make sure that it's using the scoring tool. Scroll to the bottom of your layers panel. I like to select all my score lines in one go, but you can do it individually if that's easier for you. And I'm just going to work my way up, making sure that I select the top layer in each of these groups. So you'll see that each of these little groups, I have grouped them to make it easier, has the main solid layer, which is going to be cut out, and at the top it has the score layer. Now when you get to this front cap piece here, remember this little line here, that is your dash perforated line, so don't change that. And then in this group at the top with these 3 butterfly like pieces, you want to change the middle layer, the half hexagon layer, to score. That's all of my score layers selected, so I'm going to go ahead and change the operation to score, and they've now changed to a dash perforated line. Now if you have accidentally changed your dash lines, because they do look very similar, not to worry, you can go ahead and alter them. So I'm just going to click on this piece right here, and because I've grouped them, you can see it's got 2 layers and it's selecting them both. Change the top layer to pen. Or draw, should I say. And then I'm going to click on this layer here, and I'm going to change the top layer to pen. You can change the colour as well, just to make things a little bit easier, so you can make sure that you've changed it. I'll do the same on this one. We'll just change the pen to yellow, although I am going to use a white pen. It just allows me to make sure that I've changed them correctly. So change that one finally to pen, change the colour to yellow. Now I can see that all of my score lines are a dashed black perforated line, and my pen lines on these 3 layers are yellow. And now what you need to do is just group those score lines with the layer they're associated with. So the reason I've grouped them into little groups of 2 or 3 is to make this easier for you. So for example, if I select this piece here, it will automatically select both the score line and the solid line. So I can simply just click attach. And I can do that in the layers panel. I can just click on the group and attach. And I click on the group, click attach, click the group, click attach. And I'm going to do that for all of those groups at the bottom. If you want to change the colours to match the colour of your cardstock, you can do. Anything that's dark green is the bottom of the cap, and anything that's light blue is the top of the cap. So by all means go ahead and change them. I just leave it as is and just pick whatever cardstock colour I want to use as I go along. So now that you've done that, you can go ahead and click on Make. Now, one thing that I would say is CRICUT isn't always the best at grouping and maximising the space on the mat. So you can actually probably save quite a lot of space by condensing some of these. So I would just go through, for example, these 2 at the bottom here, you could easily move those and just rotate them onto these mats that have got some empty space at the bottom. So just go through and organise them, try and save yourself a little bit of cardstock, and then go ahead, cut them out, and then I will come back to you with the assembly portion of this video. Before we start to assemble our files, just take a moment to get them all organised, group them together. So any layers that look similar, just group them together. And I've also gone ahead and pre-folded all of my score lines so that we're ready to go. I will just quickly show you how I fold the score lines on the fold down piece. So this is the explosion piece, and there is 2 of them. So I've already done this one. And what you're going to do is you're first of all going to fold over this hexagonal piece. Ignore the hexagon in the middle, that just shows you where to place the other explosion box in the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on that outer hexagon, and you want to try and get your score lines as crisp as possible. So I like to push them down with my finger, and I'm going to first of all do all of those outer edges, or you can just pinch with your thumb and finger. So that now folds up together. So I'm just going to go ahead and get all of these ready, and then we can continue to assemble our cat box. And just glue down the rings on the circles at the top. It's just going to make things easier rather than doing it at the end. I'm then going to cover this little hexagon in the middle with glue. And there is a score line which allows you to kind of see where to line this up. And we're going to just lay that over the top and just make sure you get it as lined up the best you can. Then like to take my brayer tool and just make sure that's stuck down. Okay, I'm then going to put that to one side to dry. I'm going to assemble this bottom piece. I always leave this piece till last, so put that to one side, and I'm just going to glue these 2 together. There's no particular reason why they're a different colour, it's just the only cardstock I had left over. Putting them together just strengthens the bottom of the cat box. And then just lay that down on top. And then again, just press it down, or I'm going to use my brayer tool. And we'll put that to one side. As I said, I'm not going to glue this on just yet. Take this piece back again. And we're going to start to attach the inside cap pieces. Now, there's a knack to this because you'll see how I've folded these score lines outwards. What we're going to do is we're going to apply some glue to this whole piece here, and they're going to glue underneath, and you can use those score lines as a guide, look, so it kind of just slots into place like so. So take one of these little triangular pieces, cover the whole bottom in glue, but don't put any glue on the top triangle tab or any of the tabs alongside. Lift one piece up, and as I've just shown you, slide the triangle piece at the top underneath, and then just line it up along that score edge, and just make sure you kind of pick it up and get it as really accurate as you can. And then again, just flatten those tabs down and just put some pressure on, and just make sure it's fully glued down. And the reason for this is, one, because it makes it super easy when we come to attach the 2, because you can see here it's created a sort of lip, so it's created like a little bit of a curb, so when we do come to glue it together, it just makes it super easy. But the main reason for that is because it just makes them really strong and sturdy. And we're just going to repeat that all the way around, just sticking them all on. Just make sure that your tabs are laying over the top and not underneath like so. The next step is to glue this top tab down, and we're going to do just the top tab all the way around just to get it kind of formed, and then we'll let that dry before we start to bend the cap. So we'll start one piece at a time, cover this piece in glue right the way up to that edge. Okay, we're then going to lift this over, and we're just going to, you'll notice how there's a little lip where we've added that top piece on, so just push that together right up to that edge and then press that down. And you can do this all the way until you get to the last piece, at which point it will start to bend and form a sort of bowl shape, so just be careful as you're going around. Next one. Okay, so I'm just going to lift that over, lay it over the top, and just push it up to where that joins together. Before we do the last piece, I'm going to lift the cap up and just bend it downwards so that they all start to fall down rather than up. And then we're just going to bring that in. So now it's going to start to create that bowl shape, like I said. So bring that inwards. And I'm just going to turn it over now. And just put some pressure on that tab from the inside. So you'll notice how now it's not flat anymore. It's kind of like a bowl shape. So you just have to be careful when you're doing that last tab. I'm then just going to put some pressure on the backs just to make sure they're fully glued down. And just whilst that dries, I'm going to again put that to one side. It's important to just make sure that the glue is drying. And I'm going to put these little pockets onto the explosion pieces. So I'm just going to lay this flat. I'm going to take the larger piece first of all. So I'm also then going to take the larger boxes and I'm just going to cover the back of this in glue. And we're just going to line it up with the hexagonal piece. So the little score line that goes all the way around, line the bottom up on there. And then just make sure that the top part doesn't overlap the top of the back piece. And then I'm just going to take my tool and just go right in there. And I'm going to use the pointer bit in the corners and that will just help to make that stick nice and secure. Just going to do exactly the same with the smaller piece, just gluing these pieces down in the middle like so all the way around. Now if you want to put tall chocolate bars in here, you can leave the lid off and just have it as an explosion box. If you want to put smaller chocolate bars in here, so I have these kind of slightly larger than fun size Snickers, I can put those in and put the lid on. So that's what I like to do. So I'm just going to pinch those together like so, take the lid, and as I said, you can either glue it in or I quite like to have a removable box, but both of them will form your explosion box. So I'll just put that to one side and we'll come back to our cap. I'm going to fold these tabs inwards slightly just so I can put some glue on them, and I'm going to put some glue on all of these tabs and I'm going to go right up to the end, so go as close to the end as possible because that's going to give you a nice clean finish. I'm going to focus on this end tab first because once that's lined up correctly, the rest of them will just kind of fall into place. So just make sure that that's completely lined up with the bottom of the cap, and where we've got that little kind of lip, we can just pinch that together. And you notice how because we've used 2 layers and the cap's nice and sturdy, it's almost just kind of fell into position. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay it flat, and you can then just push those tabs down from the inside and just kind of push them in slightly to get them lined up. I then like to take my bone folding tool or a pointed tool and just push down right in that corner, and that's going to give you a nice clean edge. So again, hold it like so, focusing on the bottom of the cap, just pull that in and pull it down as much as you can, and just also make sure that it's kind of lined up with that edge. So I'm just going to pinch that first of all, get that piece nice and secure, and then I'm going to turn it over, push down those tabs on the inside, and then again we can just make sure that that edge is nice and clean. So there we now have those 2 done, and I'm just going to do that all the way around my cap, and then just exactly the same. Just make sure you're kind of pulling this piece down to line it up with the bottom of the cap. Push this from, I'm going to put my hands on the inside and just push this out slightly just to get it lined up again with that edge. But because we've got that little edge, it just makes things nice and easy. have the cap portion. So we're just going to take the little blue piece at the back, which glues on here. Now I have included this little optional buckle, so if you are using the buckle, just push the front curved bit through and then back through the little gap at the back, like so. And there's a little kind of pointy bit, so that little pointy buckle just slots through one of the holes like so. And you can just go ahead and glue that on the back here. And this now just needs to glue down on here at the back like so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to cover the whole lot in glue. Let's just do it this way. Some pressure on from the inside just to make sure that's really nice and glued down. Again, going right up into those edges with the pointed tool. Hold these 3 pieces up and then just lay that down. And then I like to just pick it up and make sure it's lined up. Now, usually you wouldn't use a white piece under here, but it's all I had. So you wouldn't really see any edges anyway. We're now left with these 3 pieces. So this is basically the little top of the cap, the little button at the top. So these 2 red pieces, I'm just going to cover in glue and glue them together. This is just a filler that thickens it up. Cover this in glue. And glue them on top. And then just fold them over. Hexagon on top, and that will just sit on there. I always like to just turn it around as well and just press down from the inside. And there we have our explosion cap box. All done and completed.